So the 7 psychological sales triggers and really the importance of and really the framework for how these work and the context of it really speaks to the fact that people make decisions oftentimes based around psychology, how the mind works, how the brain is actually structured. Now keep in mind as we dive into these 7, we have fun with this, that this is no sort of manipulation. It's really around modern day understanding of psychology and how people come to make decisions. Remember, not manipulation. It's actually working with them to help them make decisions that are based upon the things that are best for them. Because ultimately, if you always focus on what's best for the client, your needs will also be met. One of the things I think is really important is to use stories in the sales process. That's the first psychological sales trigger, using stories to sell. Why it's very important is because it helps people connect emotionally. When you can help people connect emotionally, it allows you to get on the same side of the table with a client. People like stories because stories are fun. Stories are engaging. Stories get people to think, and it gets people prepared for what you're setting the table for. When developing an effective story, what you have to do, it's not cookie cutter. It's not telling the same person the same story all the time. It's you being strategic enough and having enough fun and caring about the prospect or the client enough that you actually relate stories that make sense to their particular situation. And when you can tell a story that relates to somebody's situation, it makes them feel like you've been in that situation before. It'll help create an outcome because they'll feel very comfortable with you. This is critical when telling stories. This enables you to position yourself as an expert. It's the old language. In commonly working with doctors, here is what I find. In commonly working with individuals that are business owners, here's what I find. And then you tell a story about a particular situation. What you've done is you've painted yourself as the expert. It's a common situation, which means you've been there before, and then you show a result that you've actually gotten for a client. You've helped a client achieve their goals. It gets people excited and positions you as the expert or the authority, which is ultimately what they want. Here's one of my favorite stories, and I think it ties into the insurance industry, especially in tumultuous times that are going on in the world, when economies feel like they're out of whack, when people are scared. Tell people positive stories. So this is actually an insurance company. I'll call it XYZ Insurance Company. And what has happened over time is that banks aren't lending money, but insurance companies are very strong. Insurance companies typically come out of tough financial times very, very strong. So there was a piece of real estate that was actually up for sale in Washington, D.C. It was number 2 Constitutional Square. And there was one buyer that came in, evaluated the property, did their due diligence, and submitted a contract on the property. The bank came back to that first company and said, sorry, declined. We can't offer you this building. You can't buy the building. Now, this wasn't an insurance company. Company number 2 comes in. Love the building. They actually have a tenant they could put in the building. And what ended up happening was decline stamp right on their application, their contract from the bank. Very typical. Next, what happens? XYZ Insurance Company comes into the picture and realizes very heavy on cash on their books. Really liked and did their due diligence. Remember, insurance companies are in the business of underwriting. They're going to make the best decision through due diligence. Strong companies do that. They came in, did their due diligence, loved the building, loved the location, and actually identified they could sign a 15-year lease with the Office of Government Affairs. Office of Government Affairs, they're going to pay their bills a week early. It was the perfect formula. The insurance company then came in and said, how about we give you $325 million cash? Eliminated banks from the equation and paid cash. Why I love telling people that story is in these tumultuous times, people know insurance companies are strong. And if you can help them understand that they can do business with an insurance company, they hear that story and subconsciously will get the feel that they own part of that building. So for me, when I heard that story, I thought, geez, if I did business with that company, maybe it's only a faucet that I own in one of the bathrooms in the building, but I'm a part owner of that building. It makes people feel good, and it helps people realize there are success stories out there in the marketplace. So the second psychological sales trigger that we'll cover is specifics. Naturally, when people are working with a salesperson, they're going to think, it's just the way that it is, so we have to accept it, that you're untruthful, that you're not going to share accurate information, that you're just going to try to do whatever you can to sell them. Where specifics comes into play and why it's such an important psychological sales trigger is because if somebody tells you, I'm interested in retiring at age 90, and I want to retire on $200,000 of income, and I want to anticipate a 6% rate of return over retiring at age 65 to age 90. When you plug those numbers into whatever personal planning tool that you use, what that does is it creates a specific number. And for that individual, it's an irrefutable number. It's a number that they've given you based upon the assumptions they want to use for their retirement. So when you come back, it's very relaxed. You're now having a conversation about the things that they want, and you're specifically going back with exactly the amount of money they need to save to hit their retirement goals. Probably the biggest benefit to using specifics is it absolutely refutes the fact that you're not untruthful. You're taking a number, maybe it's in a personal planning tool, maybe it's using a life insurance illustration, and you can give them an actual number, a specific number that they cannot refute. It's based upon actuarial tables of all the actuaries, mortality tables, expense tables. It's an actual number that is a specific number that can't be argued, it can't be refuted. You're no longer untruthful, you're no longer just the sales guy. You now position yourself as the educator. One of the best ways that I incorporate specifics into my practice is by leveraging in the wealth management partner that I use in my practice. And what Scott has really done for me in my practice has given me the ability to leverage that personal planning platform, that tool. You're creating a blueprint, a framework, so that the individual can tell you all of the things that are going on in their financial situation. We plug them into that planning tool, and then it outlines all of those specifics to help us educate them on how we can help them align and hit their goals long term.